Okay, welcome to the last session of the day. This is a session on ADB's new standard bidding document for collaborative operations and maintenance. My name is Kevin Moore. I'm a procurement director with ADB, and I'll be your moderator for this session. So in the spirit of the last session of the day, I've discarded the tie. We will be going with something a small bit different. So we're just going to be basically a conversation with two of my colleagues. So here I have in front of me Mr. Stéphane Bastadi. He is a senior procurement specialist with ADB, and I also have Alison Woodruff, who is a principal water security specialist, also surprisingly with ADB. So we're going to really just have a bit of a chat about what has led to ADB developing this form of contract, just what was the thinking behind it, what do we think the benefits are, how is it structured, and how do we think it's going to fit well within the series of tools that our developing members have to deal with the issue of water operation and maintenance in the water sector. So I suppose with little ado, I'll get started, and I'll start by sitting down. Okay, so I suppose, Alison, first question for you is, what are the problems that our members kind of face when it comes to, existing facilities for water treatment and water distribution?
Great, thanks, Kevin. So I think, as many of you know, ADB's water and urban development sector works across a number of subsectors, whether it's water, sanitation, solid waste management, drainage. We even work in coastal management, as well as we have some projects that cover disaster risk management. So I guess maybe in the early days, there was a very infrastructure-focused approach. We have, unfortunately, experiences where we've financed wastewater treatment plants that have cost in the millions of dollars, and then they were sitting idle, nothing happening, because it wasn't because of a war or a natural disaster. It was really a spare part that needed to be ordered that wasn't. We have examples of fully engineered sanitary landfills that were designed with liners, with gas and leachate collection systems, and again, within the first year, they reverted to open dumps because of the sole focus on infrastructure without what happens afterwards. So I think through some of these hard lessons in our sector, through sustainability, we've moved towards a much more comprehensive sort of service delivery approach. So it's not just about the infrastructure. We look at the infrastructure underpinned by sustainable land use planning. We look at capacity. Do our project agencies, utilities, and municipalities have the capacity to operate and manage infrastructure? We look at sustainable financing. So are there revenues to finance operations and maintenance costs? And then, of course, the overall enabling environment. So that would be, do the supporting regulations exist and policies to support infrastructure delivery? So I think we've moved quite far from sort of the traditional infrastructure in search of delivering sustainable urban services.
Okay, thanks for that. And Stéphane, right? When it comes to operation and maintenance, there's already existing contracts there, right? There are some existing performance-based maintenance approaches. So, why come up with something different? What did we see, and what was kind of seeding that idea to develop something new for the industry?
Kevin, and to continue what Alison was mentioning, I think we had this shared statement that the operation maintenance was maybe addressed, but was not sometimes the main focus of our contract. And it was important for us to share the launching of this contract today in this forum where we share experience with the private sector, because we also consulted very much in advance with the working group, and some of my colleagues are here in the room, to also make sure that we were sharing the same consensus that operation and maintenance was here and there, but the main focus was really to build an infrastructure, not to deliver necessarily a service. which is really a different approach. So we started very humbly, if I may say, very trying to have an analysis of what was existing on the market. And as you say, Kevin, so there was indeed a lot of different contracts. So first to consolidate all the different approach, it took some time, but we really shared the same consensus with the private sector to say, what about building together a contract where the operation and maintenance will not be at the end, but it will be at the start. And I think it was maybe the first change that we generated.
Okay, but then there's also the word collaborative, which features very prominently, right? So yes, we bring the operations and maintenance to the start. But what's collaborative about this approach, Alison? And why was collaboration so central to the idea of moving forward with this piece of work?
Yeah, I think it's down to the complexity of the urban challenges we face. We rarely have sort of a nice greenfield site where we're building infrastructure. Urban environments are extremely complex. A lot of our projects are brownfields, so we're working on existing networks with existing infrastructure. So really, the contractor and the agency and the employer have to work closely together to understand the network and the challenges. And I guess one of the prime examples being non-revenue water management. This is not something that a traditional works contract is amenable to. It's not something that you can design up front. As you know, water pipes are under the ground. Unless you've got a very good GIS and asset management system, it's very difficult to know where the pipes are, what condition they're in, to assess where the leaks need to be fixed. And then it's also NRW, non-revenue water, is not something you do once, fix, and then walk away. It's something that requires constant efforts to detect leaks, repair them, manage the pressures, and predict where the next leaks are likely to be. So, you know, this is a challenge that I think all of our utilities face. That standard works contracts don't do well. It really requires that close collaboration and iterative work between the project, the utility, and contractor.
Now, collaboration is a word that is often said, but very rarely practiced when it comes to employers and contractors, right? There is a default mentality to revert to positions and to get back to that more adversarial approach. So what makes you confident? What's in the design of this that you feel it could be a truly collaborative approach?
Thank you, Kevin. In addition of what Alison mentioned, I think we were all hit, and probably in the room some professional already experienced this. In a sector which is already sometime lagging financing, everybody, I think, face the experience of a wastewater treatment plant or a water treatment plant not operated because of a lack of capacity. So I think it's what is probably very specific to our sector, compared maybe to the operation and maintenance of a road, which may be more simple in a way, that when you operate a wastewater treatment plant or a water network, it's very, very complex. What was striking us is that sometimes, as you mentioned, Kevin, the adversarial approach was more focused on finally contractual aspects which were not addressing the main issue, which is delivering a service to client. So this is why we built this approach to say, okay, if you want people to be collaborative, you need to bring them something to build some common understanding. Because, of course, if you put two people in a room and you ask them to cooperate without bringing them any additional information of data, is very difficult. But here we are saying, okay, you have 1 year to operate the infrastructure and to build a common understanding about what is to be solved and what is achievable. Because also, we all know contract where you start to design very, very ambitious targets, for example, to reduce water leakage, or to improve water quality, which are not always realistic. So here we say, okay, let's build this collaborative approach, but which is not based on theory. It's really based on practice and collecting data to build a common understanding of what is to be done. Yeah.
Okay, and I think we're getting into the details of the approach now, which, you know, for people in the audience, they won't have actually understood what the approach is. So, Stéphane, you spoke about a 1-year phase for coming in to operate the facility. So then what does that lead to? And if there's a phase 1, then presumably there's a phase 2. So can you maybe just talk the audience through what are those steps in the process? And then I'm going to come back and maybe come back to you or Alison again to then talk a bit more about what's collaborative, because I'm still not getting what's the collaborative part of it. You know, what is the carrot for the contractor? What is the carrot for the employer to work collaboratively together? So just a bit on the steps in the process and then back to that.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I think we have a slide on that which may illustrate a little bit the process. I don't know, Gerald, if you hear me, but I will explain. So the collaborative thank you. So collaborative process, voilà, we can, so you can see here the final product, which is the contract. My mic is okay. So the collaborative approach is consisting of defining together the performance target to be reached. So it means that there is a shared agreement on what will be the performance indicator of the contract, which is really different from the traditional approach where it's already defined in the bidding document. So there is really a first level of KPI during the first year, and after there is a diagnosis. So this is what I was speaking about before. So it means there is really a diagnosis which is defined in the condition of contract and in the bidding document, where you investigate in detail. So imagine you have to rehabilitate a building or whatever infrastructure, make a detailed diagnosis about what is to be done to improve the performance of the infrastructure. Next point, Gerald, please. So you also define together what is the service delivery for beneficiaries. And there is, at each stage, an exit clause. So it means that the employer is not forced to continue the negotiation or the collaboration if he doesn't agree. But very importantly, and this is where we have probably the main difference of the contract, is that the investment plan is defined after the diagnosis phase. So it means very often in our contract, we are defining initially the investment to be done. You will agree with me on that. Huh? We are hiring consultants, and we have very a lot of consultants today to make a detailed design of what is to be done. Here you will define exactly what is to be done during the diagnosis phase, which means that you are really securing that each dollar invested has really the maximum impact. So it's really where I think this collaborative approach is at its maximum, because you have a shared agreement on what is to be done.
Okay, thanks a lot. So essentially, you engage a contractor to come into the utility, brownfield site, existing utility. They have a year to do operation and maintenance and some initial works, maybe repair works, and then develop this priority investment plan. Then the parties sit together, discuss how it would be implemented, what are the bonuses for good performance, penalties for poor performance, what are the target KPIs. And then assuming there's agreement, then they would sign the second phase activities for the remaining maybe 2 to 5 years, right? Because I understand that this form of agreement is for a shorter period of time, for 2 to 5 years. That roughly got it correct?
Yes, and in parallel, if I may mention an important point, you can see here transfer technology and knowledge of operators. And if you can go back to the previous slide, Gerald, what we are always, depending on the country in which you are living, you have maybe the experience of highly skilled water utility, people equipped with health and safety equipment, with a lot of capacity, technology capacity. So we, in the scope of this contract, the idea is to build that from the start. So to say, okay, you work also on building the capacity of the water men and women who are operating the network from the start.
Okay, thanks a lot. So now we have it. Where do we use it? What's our plans? What are the sort of, where are the opportunities we see to utilize this? And of course, this is, whilst it's an ADB issued standard bidding document, it is not just limited to ADB. Others can also use it. But where does ADB see this fitting into our overall picture for the region?
Yeah, I think it has a number of uses already. We actually have already applied it. I think it was an earlier iteration of this contract in Fiji. The contract was awarded last year. It's a performance-based, non-revenue water contract, and it fits perfectly with that collaborative approach that's discussed. Basically, the contractor has a year, and they're studying the network. They're creating new, they're rationalizing the district metered areas to optimize them, and then once they, do a plan to optimize the network, and then once agreed, they'll implement. And then the latter half of the contract, as my colleague Makhar presented, is going to be performance-based. So actually, you couldn't choose, the timing was perfect that we had this contract, because our traditional works contract, a DBO, wouldn't have been suitable for that. So it was perfect timing. We're actually now looking at using it for a wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation that will also encompass the design, construction, and operations. And because it's anchored in Green Book, it can accommodate works, but it has that period where we want to bring in the contractor to do the operations on site initially, so that they get to learn how the treatment plant operates. And then based on that, they'll come up with a detailed engineering design, and then construction, and then it'll have that follow-on O&M as well, because again, it's brownfield. So the process will require tweaking and optimization. It'll take a couple of years to do that. It's not something you can just hand over. So again, I think, yeah, this contract has multiple really good uses for our sector.
Excellent. Okay, and my final question, because this is a short session and the cocktails are waiting right over there. So my final question, and maybe for you, Stefan, this one. This is for a shorter period of O&M. This is for 5 years, right? I know that FIDIC is working on a bronze book that is looking for up to 20 years. But this is based on the FIDIC Green Book. What was the thought process for having it for a shorter period of time?
I think it's a result of a very close discussion between procurement, water and sector colleagues, and private sector. And I think we all agreed that in the water sector, sometimes the client, and we have probably a client in the room today, doesn't have the time to wait too long. So it means you need some results, some tangible results in a short term. So of course, we are here to explain that for water and wastewater and urban, you need also the long term. So it means that you need time to develop a water sector. But on the other hand, for a lot of reasons, you need to show results in a reasonable time. So at least the client think and can acknowledge that he's on a good track and that he's moving in the good direction. So I think this is the main reason for that, to say, okay, let's show results in a reasonable time, and after you can start on a longer period if
okay.
Needed.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so that's basically it, right, in terms of this new form of contract. Are there any questions from the floor? And I'll apologize that I don't have the technology, but what I can do is jump down and hand you the microphone.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Thank you very much for a very enlightening session. And we are very happy that you are coming out with this type of a format, because we are a contractor and we see these problems every day. So I have a question. When a contractor comes in and makes an investment plan after 6 months or 1 year, and the cost changes, how does ADB evaluate that, and how do they justify that this revised cost is the correct cost? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question indeed, which is also really at the heart of the contract. So we have the mic is
even the microphone is tired.
So we have. It's me.
Maybe it's not the microphone.
Okay, thank you. So we have embedded in the contract provisional sums, but who don't have the same definition as usual. We can discuss over the cocktail, which means that there is an estimated budget from the start with unit price, and you can vary. I mean, you can decide which item you will use in priority in a defined budget. So it means that you have already a defined budget from the contract, which is necessary for both parties to know on which type of contract you are engaging yourself. But you can vary the item inside the contract. Thank you.
Okay, we have one question here, and then we'll have one here at the front as well, Apple, if we can get the mic there.
Yeah, hi. My name is Imad Abu Sulaiman. I work with company Global Development Catalyst. We do feasibility studies and infrastructure consulting. The question that I have, in collaborative, you talked about sharing the goals, sharing the outcome, but there's also sharing the risk. How did you deal with what generally is put in LD, liquidated damages, in the contract? What's the downside for the contractor when they are putting such an effort to make sure to reduce their risk?
Thank you. So there are liquidated damage, and also there are performance bonus, which are embedded in the contract, and which are limited, so which are really defined in the contract, but limited. So this is why also the mechanism is more simple. So it means that, as mentioned Kevin, there is a bronze book which is being prepared for longer term contract with then a much more engagement and penalty and risk for the contractor. So here you have limited damage for the contractor. But it's also a very, very good point, because when we started this contract also, the first reaction from the private party was to say, okay, the risk has to be also limited to the effort and to the repartition role. But yeah, very good point. Thank you.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. I'll keep it short. I'm Nico from GHD. We are an engineering firm. We've done work with the bank as well. I'm very curious about the performance-based mechanisms you had mentioned regarding NRW, and it's a bit related to the question, but this time it's flipped towards maybe the share of the gain, because there's a share of the pain, like the risks that we allocate or share when we get into the contract. But is there a reward system as well for the performance based on the NRW and the amount of time that you have? You may be able to reduce it significantly. What's the upside for the private sector? Thank you.
Thank you. Alors, similar to the performance damage, so there are bonus which are defined in the contract, incentive. I think also something about, because there are a lot of additional things in the contract, and we can discuss after in the cocktail. We spend a lot of time with Alain, who is here, and the team to define a key performance indicator and how to measure them. Because also, experience from the contractor and from the client is that sometimes you start the contract and you spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years or even more. And I think, I don't know if you have a representative today from Manilad or from water companies here. They know that sometimes the discussion on how to measure the non-revenue water can be endless. So the idea here is to define very accurately which type of indicator you want to use and how you want to measure them. Because you can use non-revenue water, but you can use also other type of indicator, which can be more simple to calculate in the first part. So there are also bonus defined, and which are agreed in a collaborative manner, as I said. So yeah.
Okay, that is all we have time for this short session. But we're going to close with a few words from ADB's Senior Director for Water and Urban Development. So I'll ask Mr. Norio Saito to come up and provide the closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Now I'm standing between you and cocktail, so I'll be very short. But first of all, I want to thank everyone for joining this session, the last session of the day until very late in the afternoon. I am very happy to see your great interest in this new contract modality. And I just want to share 3 points from me on this, at this occasion. So the first is that our colleagues already mentioned, water and the urban sector operations face a lot of challenges in operation and maintenance. Our focus is now really moving from infrastructure development to sustainable service delivery. But still, many countries, many clients are facing this challenge. And we really need expertise and experience coming from the private sector working on operations and maintenance. So this contract modality really came out of the needs to really provide better support to our clients. Second point is that many of the projects we support are really brownfield investments, not greenfield. So one of the major risks for the private sector is, as Alison mentioned, it's not so clear what's really being laid under the ground. But through this contract modality, we'll give that time to operator to really assess what's really laid underground and assess what can be done and how much it's going to likely to cost. And then we come up with key performance indicators, allocate the risks, so that this will be mutually agreeable to both sides, on the employer side and the contractor side. So that's really, I think, one really major benefit coming out of this contract modality. The third point is now that this is out, and as we just saw some questions, of course, ADB staff need to understand the details of this contract modality. And also our intention is to reach out to our clients what this contract modality is all about, what are the benefits, what are the potential challenges or issues, so that we all come to a common understanding about the benefits of this contract modality. So this is something that we want to do over the next few months. And actually developing this contract modality, I think discussion started in 2022, and it took a while to do stakeholder consultation, come up with really an acceptable, workable modality, and now this is out. So we look forward to continuing this discussion with all the private sector. We'll also engage our executing agencies and implementing agencies so that we can really improve the service delivery for our clients. Once again, thank you very much for joining. And now the cocktail is available, I think. So I'll hand over back to Kevin. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, Norio. And I'll wrap up by saying thank you to Stefan and to Alison for joining us for this discussion. The first day of the 2025 Business Opportunities Fair has officially closed. Go forth and network. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.